My fellow Zambians, I wanted to throw my weight on the mourning period that was cancelled by His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Zambia, President Hakainde Hichilema. I wanted to say a few words so that we understand each other and also to educate each other on how we should be moving in situations such as the one we face today. As Zambia must prosper and a member of the Tonse Alliance, we are totally against the conduct, the speech, and the manner in which the UPND government has handled the affairs of the late President Edgar Chagwa Lungu. Legally, the former President's Act of 1993 places power in the Secretary to the Cabinet to run the office of the former Republican President, whoever that may be. That means it is the duty of the office of the Secretary to the Cabinet to look after a former president, to ensure that he has accommodation, that his allowances are met, that his fuel is provided for, security guards are provided for, his medicals are attended to, etc. In death, it is still the Secretary to the Cabinet of the government of the day that should ensure as to how the remains of a former president are buried. This is where the failure has come in. The fact that South Africa has agreed to have our sixth Republican president, late Edgar Chagwa Lungu, buried in South Africa is embarrassing. It is very, very embarrassing. It is shameful, and as a nation, we should never have allowed this situation to occur. South Africa, where the late President Edgar Chagwa Lungu had gone for medical attention, is not his home. He had gone there to seek medical attention. His home was in Chifwema, here in Lusaka. Here are a few things from research, from precedent, as to how we bury a late president in Zambia. I have spoken to officials of the government, both in government today and former government officials at very high levels. The procedure must be this. Whenever a president, a former president, dies, it is mandatory that the nation must be informed of that death within 2 hours. Please note that. Within 2 hours. This was not done. That announcement, before it is made, the person making the announcement will be preceded by the playing of the national anthem. The announcement must be made at the national broadcaster's office or station. In this case, Zambia National Broadcasting Station. This shows the importance of the information that is coming. National anthem, the broadcast at Zambia National Broadcasting Corporation. In this day and age, other media houses can pick up the news from there. The address, usually by the Secretary of the Cabinet or a sitting president, is merely to inform the nation that we have lost a president. This act, the protocols and procedures are not prescriptive. When we heard about the death of President Edgar Chagwa Lungu, this government, the UPND government, did not speak to the nation until after 4 days. This was procedurally wrong and incorrect. Further, the announcement that was made by the Secretary of the Cabinet, Patrick Campbell, was prescriptive. He came to tell the nation that the government had declared national mourning that there will be a period of 7 days of national mourning and that burial will be within that period. This again was wrong. The protocols are that when an announcement is made, the first time, about the death of a former Republican president, it is merely to inform the nation that we have lost a president. And the government then will tell the nation that details about the program and other things will come later. Why this is important is because the government then has to engage two sets of people. One, the family. Second, it must engage the political party to which that president belonged. Both these, in our current situation, have not happened. And we all know why. The reasons are simple. The Secretary of the Cabinet prescribed a 7-day period without engaging the family. The Secretary of the Cabinet prescribed a 7-day mourning period initially without engaging the Patriotic Front, the party to which Edgar Lungu belonged and was president. The reason why the UPND did not engage the Patriotic Front as a political party is simply because the UPND has been interfering in the affairs of the Patriotic Front. They have superimposed a president on the Patriotic Front, so they didn't know who to engage because the guy currently there is their stooge who will not command any respect from the PF. That was a problem. As we speak today, this is the 15th or 16th day after we lost our beloved 6th Republican president. No government official, and I say no government official, has visited Chifwema, the official mourning home of where Edgar Chagwa was residing. The president has not been to the funeral home. The vice president has not been to the funeral home. No minister has been to the funeral home. Not even the secretary to the cabinet. This is not how we mourn. Granted, trips were taken to go to South Africa to go and engage the widow and engage the daughter, who at that time, with the sister of the late Edgar Chagwa Betha, were the only relatives, perhaps, living in South Africa, who were with him. But here's the catch. Edgar Lungu was married to Mayowa Esther Lungu. Tasila is his daughter. There are other relatives. Betha is the immediate older sister, yes, but there are other relatives of Edgar Chagwa who were left behind here in Zambia. In my own small way, as a patriot, as a political leader, and wanting closure and trying to open up doors for this government, I did introduce family members to this government. Members of the family of Edgar Chagwa were engaged by this government. However, the meetings took place in government offices. This is not how it should be. We are not only educated, but we are also Africans. When we say we are mourning, and when you say you visited the funeral, it means you visited the funeral home. The mourners must not be the ones to move and come to a government office. That was again wrong. All these are mistakes that this government made. Let me go to South Africa so that maybe we can understand each other. Speaking legally, still, as a lawyer, we saw a presser which was held on the 15th of June between the spokesperson of the family, my young brother, Learned Counsel Makebi Zulu, and the Secretary of the Cabinet, Patrick Kangwa, on the other hand. Makebi Zulu was reading the wishes of the family or the late Edgar Chagwa from a tablet. When it was the turn for the Secretary of the Cabinet to speak, he was reading off his phone. Again, he was reading the demands and instructions he had received from government. Legally, I saw those as a third party watching, and I want to report to Zambians my fellow Zambians, there was no agreement. I'm sorry to report, there was no agreement. There's a difference between an intention to create legal relations and an actual agreement, which is a contract. What Makebi read, what Patrick Kangwa read, did not meet. From diplomatic circles, go and ask anybody who has run government properly with experience. They will tell you that the two parties must have had a third party who should have come in to read what is called as a communique. The parties must have discussed in the background. They must have agreed, exchanged drafts, and a final agreement signed or presented to the media and signed in front of the media. The communique must have been read by an individual saying that this one and this one have agreed on these terms and conditions going forward. That didn't happen. From that moment on, I knew from a legal perspective there was going to be problems. But because we are Zambians and we were in mourning, and because we wanted to trust this government, we assumed they'll do the right thing. So when the president came to address the nation 2-3 days ago and cancelling the period of national mourning and saying the family had breached an agreement, I want to ask the president of this country, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, Your Excellency, where is the agreement that was signed between the Lungu family and your government? I submit, there was no agreement. That is why you as a government wanted to superimpose your own program on the arrival of the body and whatever you wanted to do with the body and how you wanted the procession to go. There was no agreement. But credit to the family. The family's resolve, the wishes of Edgar Chagwa were to be maintained. And when they heard of your plans, they cancelled the repatriation of the remains of the late president to Zambia. That is where the problem is. I need to remind this government that in events such as these, the engine of administration is cabinet office. And when you have incompetent, inexperienced cabinet officials running the affairs of government who don't know how to go about a serious matter such as this one, we get into this kind of social problems. The former President's Act may not legislate everything because it is difficult. I repeat, it is difficult to legislate emotions. That is why the protocols insist that the family must be engaged. The former late president's political party must also be engaged. When there is a resolution and people have agreed, that's when you announce the burial program. What we have seen so far has been scandal after scandal, has been failure after failure, has been lack of communication after lack of communication, and there has been no agreement. That's why we're in this debacle now. But let me say this to you, fellow Zambians. There has been no official visit to the funeral home by any government official to date, as we speak. There has been no consultation with the family at the funeral home. There has been no consultation with the political party to which Edgar Chagwa belonged, the PF. And the reasons are those that I've alluded to earlier on. Because the president cannot produce the agreement that the family breached, I put it to you that it is this government that has actually lost face. Does the government work on verbal issues? Verbal agreements? Does a government worth its salt agree that a cab memo can be verbal, without consultations, without the policy analysts analyzing the document that is to be signed by government. There are enough people within government who could have advised this president, but we have a non-listening president, hence where we are. So, 2-3 days ago, the president came on the screens and cancelled national mourning. Question: where are we rushing to? According to Hakainde Hichilema, our president, we must return to normalcy. Let me put it to you, Mr. President. We are never, ever, ever going to return to normalcy as long as we have not buried Edgar Chagwa Lungu's remains in this country. And this is your fault, your government's fault. So there will be no normalcy. This is an international embarrassment. All this is a procedural issue which should have been resolved from the beginning. Technical issues should have been ironed out by technocrats. You didn't allow them to do that. You have asked the country for calm and patience, not to be emotional. We agree. We shall not be emotional. But we are looking for leadership. And the problem we have right now is you have failed us, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema. Your leadership has failed this country. Hence the embarrassment that we are facing today. Fellow Zambians, our late president, Edgar Chagwa Lungu, was a product of a credible democratic process and a gracious loser of the same democratic process. He effectively died whilst in forced exile. Hakainde Hichilema cannot accept that. But the truth of the matter is, Edgar Lungu was in forced exile. He was basically seeking for political asylum. Yes, he was sick, but I don't believe from the discussions I had with the late president that he had any intention of returning to this country. He wanted peace of mind, and he wasn't getting his peace here in Zambia. This is not a leader who was overthrown via undemocratic means, no. But he was a strong defender of the very democratic process that delivered a result he did not prefer. But nevertheless, he respected it and handed over power peacefully. He was a Democrat. Edgar Chagwa Lungu was denied even the basic use of the airports that he built. The medical facilities that he so longed for were blocked from him. Medical services he had worked to expand in this country did not come to fruition. Hence, he wanted to seek specialized treatment. That was denied of him. How did we get here? It is a failure of leadership. And the buck stops at Hakainde Hichilema. Hakainde Hichilema and his undiscerning administration have failed us in this situation we're in today. That we shall lay to rest a leader of that consequence in a foreign land is a moment of shame, collective shame, whose responsibility lies squarely on our very mean and uncaring government of the UPND. What shall we tell our children? Honestly, what shall we tell our grandchildren when we look back at this piece of history? What shall we say to our neighbors in the region? How shall we explain this to the global world that is watching us? Shame is shame, and we can't change that. But this is clear. Zambians, in their collective wisdom, will one day resolve this same issue, will one day and soon be brought back to rest in his native home of Zambia, as Zambia must prosper, and a member of the Tonse Alliance, we so declare. Let us unite as the opposition so that we secure national consensus to remove this failed one-term project called the UPND government out of power. This divisive, insensitive, and failed regime is not who we are as a people. As Zambia must prosper, we regret Zambia's diminished reputation in the region and its international stature. Zambia has a well-established reputation as a cradle of peace. And this is what our forefathers were known for. A seat in the region that was always able to broker diplomatically peace around the region and secure the independence of the entire region in Southern Africa. We have lost that due to this failed leadership. As we agree that ECL's remains for now must rest in South Africa, we are resolved that never again shall we vote into power this failed regime called the UPND government. Let me thank our neighbor, our friends in the region, South Africa in particular, for helping us look after the Lungu family. Let me thank the neighboring heads of state who have shown leadership in this trying moment. And we say to them, we are very sorry that we have been embarrassed by a leadership that is insensitive and uncaring. But this is the last time this happens. To you, my fellow Zambians, I say, let us unite. It is now time to kick out the UPND out of government. And I thank you.